In this video, I'm going to show you how to completely disassemble the new SSP5 pistol. We start by doing basic disassembly. Yeah, we will put the lower aside. We will start by separating the two pieces of slide. Okay. So this is a wear slide where your nozzle is located, and this is the part that moves most of the time. You need to keep this part well lubed, not too much, but make sure it moves smooth and the nozzle returns by itself. Now we to be able to remove the blowback housing, we will start by removing the wear side. I'm using the NOVRITSCH toolkit number 3 flathead. Now the wear side, we have a screw. You can just leave the screw in. You don't really need to touch this part. If you wanted to use the charging handle, you also have to remove the wear side and replace it with your charging handle, either the right-hand version or the left. Now the blowback housing will just slide out, and this is your wear slide with nothing else on it. Now be careful with this nozzle return spring. It can jump out. You don't want to lose that. Now with that out of the way, you can just slide, pull the nozzle completely forward, and just slide out the back piece. And now you can peel out the nozzle. Here's your nozzle. And the front section of the blowback housing, this part is polymer. So this is the back piece of the blowback housing. You have the piston head, piston, and the back piece. The piston might be rotating freely, but do not worry. That is to make sure these two are not in too much of a solid connection, so it can self-align itself. And this one would be out of the box, very well secured with screw glue. So you might need to heat it up with something that offers you focused heat. You can also, to play it safe, to remove the piston head first. Okay, don't lose this screw. Now we can use a cross head to remove the piston head. You should apply screw glue to the same places, like this head screw, this screw in the back, and the screw in the piston head. Apply screw glue so they don't get loose when you're using them. Now we have the back's wear slide completely disassembled, and we will move to the front. For the front slide, we will start by removing the front iron sight. Just loosen this set screw and it will rotate out. There we go. Now with the Allen key that came with the gun, can remove these two screws. You would also have to remove these two screws if you want to install the red dot. Okay. Now we have to remove this screw here. You might have to loosen this screw while installing the red dot plate as well. Now back out the TDC screw. So it will slide out. Now you have the front slide, and you can also remove this piece holding the slide to the frame. But generally, you can just leave it in your regular disassembly. We have now the recoil plug, recoil spring, guide rod, and your buffer. Now we can just rotate to get the outer barrel out. There's the O-ring on the inner barrel. Now we can just shake it for the TDC nut to drop out. Now we have one set screw in the back that we have to remove to allow us to remove the inner barrel. This one would also be secured with screw glue. You would not want to strip the screws, these set screws, otherwise it will make your disassembly a lot more difficult. This set screw would be holding the inner barrel on this slot. Now it would help if you remove the O-ring on the inner barrel first, then sliding it out, so you avoid chopping the O-ring. Now this is your hole pop unit. One's part is very different from the original Marui. And now you have the inner barrel with the hole pop bucking. You can just pull it out, pull the tab in, and push out the bucking. There you go. Now we can move to the lower. We start by, of course, resetting the hammer. Then we can pull out the hammer spring housing. So this is inside this is your hammer spring. You have this brass detent that you have to carefully push out to the side, and that will release the hammer spring with your spring guide, sort of. And here's the housing. This is your leaf spring. Now we can start to remove the grip. Can also remove the mic catch. Just push in and rotate. Then that will lock this locking piece in place. You can see. Now have one additional screw. Remove that one. Now the grip right now is loose. However, the SSP5 grip has two locking lugs that you will have to pry this to remove, and it will take some force. And every time you do it, this is where it locks onto with these two sides. If you remove it too often, you will start losing the edge, and it would not it would not hold as nice as before. So don't do it too often. This is your trigger with a trigger bar, and now this is your naked grip. And now we goes on to the frame. Now from here you have to be very careful, because inside here it's a loaded spring with two pins. And you have to be careful not to letting it jump out. And you start by having the hammer in the cocked position so you can flip up the safety. And you start by removing the safety on the left side. Make sure it's in the most upward position. Since the safety is pinned, it is a little bit hard to separate them for the first time. And hopefully you will not need to do this very often. You can wiggle the two pieces to help it to come out, but as I said, be careful with that piece flying out. There we go. Okay. Now here is what I'm talking about, is a pin with a screw, and the other one, this one would be holding your slide catch. Do not lose these. Now we can rotate further and remove the safety on the other side. Now here is your safety, your grip safety. Now we have the functional part of the frame. We start by removing this screw. It will also be screw glued. For the SSP5, the hammer post is also steel and is screwed under the frame. Here's your steel hammer and your steel shears. And now you have the naked middle frame. And we move on to the final piece. First, this is your striker. I remove it together with the spring, and we unscrew this last screw here. Whenever you feel it's too difficult to remove, just apply some heat to help loosen it. It is very important not to strip the screws. Okay, there we go. And be careful, there is also spring inside and this part can jump out. Now this is your striker sear. I set it aside, and the striker sear housing with the screw. Now this is your SSP5 completely disassembled.